Looking for a degree program that rewards you for what you already know? At WGU, all of our bachelor's and master's programs are competency-based, allowing you to progress at your own pace. Washingtonians know how valuable time and money are, and so do we. At WGU, your hard work and experience can help you finish your degree faster and for less. Join a community of driven professionals from across the DMV who are unlocking new career opportunities today. See how your knowledge can give you an edge at wgu.edu.
Good afternoon. Getting right down to business here. Doing it live and doing more at 4 weekday afternoons, right after Guy Benson at 3 and just before the 790 KBC News Blitz with Randy Wang at 5. Mottek on Money. We are live on the air here on 790 KBC, streaming live online worldwide at kbc.com. Your on-demand Mottek on Money podcast, kbc.com, Apple, iTunes, YouTube, all your favorite podcast platforms. Stocks did move higher today on the latest upbeat economic reports, helping to ease concerns raised by one organization about the potential economic harm from the president's tariffs. The Dow Jones Industrial Average closed higher by 214 points, selling at 42,519. The S&P 500 up 34, and the NASDAQ gained 156. We also saw the small cap stocks getting a boost today with the Russell 2K small cap index rising about 1.5%. NVIDIA now overtaking Microsoft to become the world's most valuable company, with the AI chip maker's market cap climbing to $3.4 trillion, $3.444 trillion, to surpass Microsoft's $3.441 trillion market value. We'll take a closer look at NVIDIA stock as well as a Microsoft stock later this hour. A JOLTS update showing that job openings, that's the job openings report, unexpectedly rose in the month of April as tariff hikes impacted the labor market. The hiring rate also rose, signaling the job market remains in a stable position. All this ahead of the big enchilada of monthly economic reports, as we call it. That's the monthly report we get from the Labor Department. That'll be coming out first thing Friday morning. The May jobs report, which will be coming out an hour ahead of the opening bell on Wall Street. Earlier, the OECD slashed its outlook for global economic growth, citing the impact of tariffs here in the U.S. on investment and confidence. The economy will slow particularly sharply here in the U.S., according to that forecast, going from a growth rate of 2.8% last year to only 1.6% this year and 1.5% for next year. I'll discuss this latest news with prominent economist Kevin KLOWDEN from the Milken Institute. He'll be joining me live later this hour. Another sign of the trade war having an impact, China's manufacturers saw their worst slump since 2022 in the month of May, coming off the pandemic. Back in those days, tariff hikes impacting smaller exporters despite the U.S.-China trade truce, according to another private survey. President Trump today promising to hike nearly all of his tariffs on foreign steel and aluminum to 50% by tomorrow, a move that would hit businesses from automakers to home builders and likely push up prices for consumers. According to various reports, foreign-made steel and aluminum is being impacted by this, used in pretty much all household products, soup cans, paper clips, and stainless steel refrigerators, cars, and the list goes on. Ford, meanwhile, had a good day today. The stock rose more than 2% after reporting sales jumped 16.3% last month. It marked the company's best May since 2019. Nervous time in Washington as the U.S. Senate takes up the president's so-called big, beautiful spending bill. I'll discuss where things stand and the importance of that bill to small businesses nationwide. Jeff Brabant will be with us, vice president of the National Federation for Independent Business. Elon Musk, meanwhile, speaking out about that bill, targeting the GOP spending bill, calling it a disgusting abomination, in his words. As you may recall, Elon Musk just recently left the White House after completing his work as the head of DOGE, the Department of Government Efficiency. His brief tenure was defined by sweeping cost reductions and a lot of legal battles and intense political scrutiny. Now he's focusing his attention at Tesla and SpaceX as well as other things. First on your money, the markets, the economy now. Joining us live, John NAJARIAN. Dr. J, as he's known on the major financial networks, co-founder of Market Rebellion. He has the laser eyes on, too, following the cryptos. A lot to follow there these days, with Bitcoin still hovering near its all-time high. John NAJARIAN, also author of numerous books, including his latest with his brother Pete, It's Not an Option. Then he also has the Not an Option podcast now, too. John NAJARIAN, thank you very much for taking the call here this afternoon.
Always great to be with you, Frank. Thank you, sir.
Wonderful to have you with us here, and a lot to unpack. First of all, give us your reaction to the latest market news, certainly driven by the latest tariff developments, as well as the latest news on the economy.
Well, the market seemed to take it all in stride. Yesterday we opened lower and came roaring back, and today we were flat to down in the early market moves, and then just like yesterday, we had a pretty significant surge, in particular in the NASDAQ, led by, of course, your lead piece of news there, NVIDIA, with it overtaking Microsoft as the most valuable company in the world. That seemed to make all the difference that the market needed, and we just kept climbing throughout the session, pretty much closing at Dow, S&P, and NASDAQ session highs. And I think the Russell was right there as well.
Right. That's usually a positive sign when you see the Russell 2K rally. So that's a bullish sign with all this talk about economic weakness and all that. As you know, the stock market is supposed to be forward-looking, right? So what is the market seeing despite all of this nervousness here?
Well, I mean, there definitely is some nervousness, but volumes have been strong. The VIX has been going down. The VIX, of course, many people view it as a fear index and so forth. So people definitely a lot more comfortable with the market. It was at multi-week lows today, trading all the way down below 18 and closing the day at basically 1769. That's far cry from the 60 readings that we were seeing in early April, when a lot of these tariffs were really front and center. The tariffs haven't gone away, but the market's ability to deal with exactly what the impact is, both short-term and longer-term, has really been pretty phenomenal.
What about NVIDIA? Let's focus on that for just a moment. What a comeback for that stock. It kind of cracked below 100, right, during that sell-off we saw in the last month or so, and then has roared back. Let me take a look here. NVIDIA up nearly $4 today at 141 and change here.
Yeah, the 52-week low, which was hit not too terribly long ago, was beneath $90 a share. $87, $86 a share. So the $1 trillion rally in that stock, that V-shaped bottom continues. And it seems that people that stepped out, or in other words, took either profits and decided to get out of the market, or took losses and limped away from the market, were not happy about either decision, because the stock is basically right very, very close to its all-time high right now.
All right. Today, the news about steel tariffs increasing, which is supposed to impact consumer products, by the way, including cars and so forth. A lot of attention focused on U.S. steel stock lately. X is the famous ticker symbol on that one. Looks like it closed slightly higher today at 53 and change. And that stock has seen an impressive move recently. In fact, it appears to be close to its certainly 52-week high. What about this announcement regarding steel and the steel stocks and the potential fallout from this announcement today?
Well, so Nucor is another one of those stocks. Of course, U.S. Steel, the president supporting that merger with, I believe, Nippon Steel. But right. Nucor, a domestic steel company, was up about 1.6% today, trading up to 122 and change. Another strong performance out of that one, as it was yesterday. Today, also Steel Dynamics, STLD, up about 1%. Domestic steel companies, of course, love these tariffs because it means that their product will be all the more in demand if there are tariffs on imported steel. And I think a lot of the focus today was also on some of these generation of electricity, whether it's from nuclear power, like Constellation Energy, CEG, or whether it's some of those small modular reactors. Even though they gave a little bit of the big pop they had early in the morning back, I think anybody who thinks that we're going to pay less attention to data and thus obviously demand at data centers for AI and other functions, I think they're sadly mistaken. This is going to be, I think, one of the hot sectors for all of 2025, and that is the utilities that provide the electricity that is so necessary for those data centers.
All right, and here's something. Facebook going nuclear, right? The parent company of Facebook, Meta. This was a big announcement, too. A nuclear deal with Constellation Energy, CEG, which you mentioned. What are we to make of this with Meta doing this deal with the nuclear energy company?
Right. Well, Microsoft, of course, famously made a deal with Constellation Energy, desiring enough energy to power its data centers, and in fact tapping Constellation for that 3 Mile Island, one of those shuttered nuclear facilities. Not the whole of 3 Mile Island, of course, was shut down after it had that issue in the 1970s, but certainly the one that was shut down of their nuclear power plants, basically Microsoft said, we're going to put a data center right here. And that gave Constellation Energy a pretty big boost. Meta doing the same thing now, deciding that they better start rounding up and securing power if they want to be as much of a game changer as they've been for most of their career. The stock isn't at the $740 level, which is the 52-week high, but nonetheless, it's still trading $660 plus today. And this is a pretty big announcement that I think Google and a couple of these other competitors in the cloud would be smart to be following down that same path that Microsoft, with, of course, its Azure, as well as Google, would be smart to follow the moves that both Microsoft and now Meta have done.
All right. Look, whatever happened to the metaverse, by the way? Remember when buying real estate in thin air in the metaverse was a big thing, and people were putting down real money for this imaginary metaverse. Is that a thing at all now, or has that completely gone away?
I'm betting that Zuckerberg was halfway wishing he never changed the name from Facebook to Meta. But Meta also, not just the metaverse itself, does imply a forward look that certainly Zuckerberg has. But you're right. We're not hearing anything about metaverse. We're really just hearing about what these firms have to do to secure that electricity for these very electricity-hungry data projects,
Centers.
Whether it happens to be something like exactly what Azure does for Microsoft, or if it's something that...
Looking for a degree program that rewards you for what you already know? At WGU, all of our bachelor's and master's programs are competency-based, allowing you to progress at your own pace. Washingtonians know how valuable time and money are, and so do we. At WGU, your hard work and experience can help you finish your degree faster and for less. Join a community of driven professionals from across the DMV who are unlocking new career opportunities today. See how your knowledge can give you an edge at wgu.edu.
The United States Soccer Federation presents the U.S. Soccer Podcast.
Inside the opening 45 seconds. What a goal!
Jack McGlynn with that cannon of a left foot.
Never miss a game.
What a start for the United States.
Shot from distance. What a goal!
Never miss a moment.
Exquisite from the San Diegan.
Can he finish? Yes, he can! Yeah!
The U.S. Soccer Podcast. Follow and listen on your favorite platform.
Some of the other large players, like obviously NVIDIA, provides the chips, the GPUs for those data centers, as well as Dell Computer and SMCI that provide many of the racks and other things necessary for those data centers. I think this is going to be, like I said before, one of the focus areas for investors in the market this year.
On the air live with John NAJARIAN, Dr. J, as he's known on the major financial networks, and also author of It's Not an Option with his brother Pete NAJARIAN. And let's get to some of the exciting stuff here. Certainly want to ask you about options here in just a moment. But first, what about crypto here with Bitcoin still holding up nicely here? Let's see, just below 106,000, is it, at last check here? 105,889. Yeah, give us an update here on what's happening in crypto land.
Well, certainly a lot of excitement, even though we're just days after the Bitcoin 2025 descended onto Vegas. Those folks that were out there for that certainly came back pretty excited. I'll be surprised, though, if we don't see a little bit of a test of the 100 level again. Not for any bit of news, but rather that seems to be the pattern that people get very pumped up about digital assets in general, Bitcoin in particular, whenever they have a really big conference. But then a lot of the fear of missing out, as that dies down, the market tends to just test its most recent support level. And I would say that's likely to be between 100 and 102. And if we traded there, I don't think it's the end of the world. I think Bitcoin can easily keep going higher. But again, most of these assets don't just go straight up. They have back and fill patterns that are pretty similar to stocks, that is these digital assets. But to see Ethereum back up over 3,100 is pretty, I think, positive for the sector. And then you've got Solana right now over $153 a share, or per coin rather. And I think those are some of the big focus areas right now. Bitcoin had that fabulous run. It's not over, but I think it will back and fill a little bit before it goes higher.
All right, how much higher do you think it will go? We see these astronomical predictions here that are out there. Realistically, what does your gut tell you where Bitcoin is heading?
Well, I think Bitcoin overall, you heard, of course, Tom Lee. I'm sure you're thinking of him when you're saying wild optimism that Tom Lee always has had for digital assets, in particular Bitcoin. And I believe his target is 3 million now per Bitcoin for an asset right now that's what, 100 and just below 106,000. 105,789 is where I show it right now. But I think you're going to see a lot of focus on these for a considerable period of time. My target for 2025 is really about 154,000 that we were looking for that asset this year. And I think a lot of that oomph will come in the second half of 2025.
You think Bitcoin will have a more visible presence in banks, given the current administration being very crypto-friendly, the Treasury Secretary crypto-friendly, and there's a crypto czar, and the list goes on. Do you think crypto will be much more visible and accessible to people, and will that be ultimately bullish for these coins?
I do think so. And I do think we're already seeing more and more companies, GameStop included in that list, that are following Michael Saylor's lead, taking their treasuries and turning the dollars that were in there into Bitcoin in particular. And some of them will be going after Ethereum and so forth. I think we're going to see a lot of institutional adoption, as well as some of the consumers that have not had quite the same opportunity, except through trusts back in the old days of grayscale and now ETFs. I think more and more consumers are going to be adopting it. And I believe Mr. Sachs, the crypto czar, said that about 50 million Americans already own Bitcoin. And that's obviously just about, 1/7 or 1/8 of the country. So I think we're likely to see that number move up substantially over the next 18 months to 24 months.
All right, you're the author, co-author with your brother Pete, actually, of the book "It's Not an Option." What's happening in the option space? Let's get to some more exciting stuff here. The fast money options and the VIX and everything else in options world here.
Well, we were just at a big conference with our business partner, Grant Cardone, in South Florida, Aventura, in fact. And that was very well attended. We had, I think, close to 60,000 people online for the conference and about, I think, 720 or so people in person for the two-day conference. It was called WealthCon 2025. And a lot of the speakers, like Brock Pierce, obviously a notable digital asset or crypto person that was involved with the initial move in Tether. Bill Pulte from the housing czar, if you will, was speaking as well at that conference. So people are definitely looking at ways that they can hedge their portfolios, whether it happens to be crypto, stock, or futures. And the volumes just tell the story. The volume of trading in options has just been going up by leaps and bounds. And that's something certainly that my brother Pete and I are very happy to see, because we are right at the forefront of either educating consumers in best uses of options and how to properly understand them so that they don't hurt themselves, because it's like fire. You can cook with fire, or if you don't understand it and it gets out of control, it can hurt you. So it's better to understand those asset classes, calls and puts, than it is to just dive right in without proper education.
Well, you and your brother Pete do a great job with all of this, and of course, we greatly appreciate you joining us here. And next time you're in Aventura, call me. We'll go over to the mall there. I know that area very, very well, by the way. I grew up in that area, North Miami Beach, and so hopefully I get to see you at one of these conferences one of these days, and back out here in Beverly Hills. I know you were just here for the big conferences, so keep us in the loop on all of that, and look forward to speaking with you again very soon. John NAJARIAN, Dr. J, as he's known on the major financial networks, co-founder of Market Rebellion. Of course, check him out on X as well. And the book, again, is It's Not an Option, with his brother Pete NAJARIAN. John, thank you very much for joining us live this afternoon.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you, Frank. Have a great rest of your week.
You too, sir. Thank you very much. And out to the freeways now, 790 KBC. Frank Mottek back with you here for United Gold Group. Did you know that for more than 10,000 years, gold has been the greatest store of value and considered a safe haven asset to preserve your wealth? Well, now with the U.S. debt at over $36 trillion and climbing, a possible recession on the horizon, and the development of the digital dollar, central bank digital currency, it's more critical now than ever before to safeguard your assets like your cash savings and retirement accounts with physical gold. Opening a gold IRA is one of the best ways to secure your wealth and create a stable financial future. Stop worrying about your retirement and the market and cash savings in the bank. Feel confident, prepared, and in control with physical gold and, yes, silver. Give my friends at United Gold Group a call right now. The number is 800-753-8534. Mention Mottek, and you can get $1,000 worth of silver with a qualifying purchase. Call now, 800-753-8534. Or go to UnitedGoldGroup.com. Mottek Money continues here, 790 KBC. NVIDIA, the magnificent one, living up to its name today, overtaking Microsoft today to become the world's most valuable company. NVIDIA stock moving higher today by nearly $4 at $141 and change. The overall market also powered up with the Dow up 214 points, the S&P 500 of 34, NASDAQ of 156, gold up more than $4 at $3,381.20. Crude oil hovering at $63.42 a barrel. The volatility index slipping 4%. Bitcoin down about 400 now at 105,889. Ethereum hovering at 2,605. Doge at the moment at 19 cents. And now the latest news on 790 KBC. Mottek Money continues here, 790 KABC. Another day, another big announcement on tariffs, today involving the steel industry. This as the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, the OECD, as it's known, an international group that follows the global economy, cut its outlook for global economic growth today, citing the impact of the president's trade policy on investment, as well as confidence. They say the U.S. economy will slow particularly sharply heading into 2026. Joining us live now, prominent economist Kevin KLOWDEN, Executive Director of Milken Institute Finance, based right here in Southern California. Kevin KLOWDEN, thank you very much for coming to the line here this afternoon.
My pleasure, Frank.
Wonderful to have you with us. Things moving so quickly these days. So can we get an up-to-the-minute update from you on where things stand here, given this latest report today and the latest tariff announcements, and there's still a lot of uncertainty. The market, though, rallying today. Give us your assessment of things here at the moment.
Well, there's so many different factors that everybody's looking at right now. The OECD coming out and giving their announcement and basically saying that the tariff uncertainty is going to significantly impact growth prospects worldwide, but particularly in North America, really isn't a huge surprise, because part of the issue that we're really dealing with and seeing is that the
Looking for a degree program that rewards you for what you already know? At WGU, all of our bachelor's and master's programs are competency-based, allowing you to progress at your own pace. Washingtonians know how valuable time and money are, and so do we. At WGU, your hard work and experience can help you finish your degree faster and for less. Join a community of driven professionals from across the DMV who are unlocking new career opportunities today. See how your knowledge can give you an edge at wgu.edu.
Bravo TV star Lala Kent holds nothing back.
I think the boundaries are getting a little unboundaried, but that's fine.
From relationships,
it's grabbing coffee with your friends. That is
right up my alley.
Right?
To business and beyond.
Where there's history, true friendships, but it's fine. I've also been a rat.
I'm obsessed with her. I hate her. Literally the exact same feeling.
If you really want to party,
you have to have the perfect combination.
Give them Lala. Follow and listen on your favorite platform.
Trade order that had been built around the USMCA that President Trump had actually played a key role in establishing has managed to really get upended by a number of the different tariffs. And the uncertainty, are they going to get applied? When are they going to get applied? When are they not? Is leading to a lot of different companies hedging their bets on supply chains, on orders, on everything. And so the OECD is just recognizing this. But it's worth also noting that even though it is definitely saying significantly reduced economic growth, it's also not saying, look, there's going to be a recession, there's going to be a contraction worldwide, which honestly, given some of the doomsaying and some of the concerns that people were saying even a few weeks ago, it can be considered somewhat reassuring.
On the live with economist Kevin KLOWDEN. Certainly the trade relationship between the U.S. and China getting a lot of attention during this 90-day pause. We just had the big China-California Business Forum yesterday at the Biltmore Hotel in downtown Los Angeles, and certainly business still being celebrated in a big way between California and China. What do you see ahead on that front with all this tariff uncertainty, how this is going to play out after the 90-day truce expires?
Well, the big concern we're seeing is that both the U.S. and China have already accused each other of violating the terms of the truce. That they are saying, each side is saying that the other is gaming it, and that isn't reassuring in terms of the idea that we're going to reach some sort of effective agreement. The fact is that even with this truce, this is still just reducing the tariffs down to a somewhat manageable level and having goods flowing again. We certainly felt it here in Southern California when the cargo ships were suddenly, showing up empty, when there was a pause in any goods really coming in, and we were seeing all of that reduced activity in the ports and here in Southern California. So obviously, we really, as a state, as a city, as a region, we really want to see some sort of effective working agreement, because the California economy is still very much tied in with China. In many ways, we're more exposed to that trade back and forth between the U.S. and China than most other parts of the U.S., whether it is in terms of electronics, whether it is in terms of advanced manufacturing, or whether it's even something like toys. So having some sort of agreement kick in before the pause is certainly to everybody's benefit. But right now, that uncertainty, again, is there in the fact that there isn't a really good alternative. Even if the tariffs are paused with, say, Vietnam or Bangladesh or Malaysia, we don't know if those pauses will hold either, because those can hit their limit in next month.
On there live with economist Kevin Clouden, and certainly you're also following the ongoing recovery from the firestorms this year in Malibu, the Palisades, as well as in Altadena. All the various initiatives underway, including Rick Caruso's Steadfast LA, as well as others. Can you give us an update on how this effort is going?
Well, the effort is definitely proceeding, but it's being hindered. If you talk to some various private sector individuals, will say that the city isn't doing enough or the county isn't doing enough. But whether or not that's true, one of the things that's actually really feeding into this, on top of everything else, is the fact that with the DOGE cutbacks to FEMA, with some of the cutbacks in staffing and funding, that is dragging out the process. The tariffs also play a role. You talking about the steel tariffs and the announcement there, that is definitely going to have an impact, particularly in rebuilding public structures. It's great to see that there are a number of different active plans being put forth. There's efforts to streamline the building, and for those of you who've exposed to it, the Pacific Coast Highway is actually open again to people being able to drive up and down it, which is a very positive thing for those going towards the Palisades. But that issue of terms of just not just rebuilding, but be rebuilding right, is going to take a lot of patience. And even as we get a number of these announcements that are made, even as money is raised and there's expedited processes in place, we still have to be cautious that there are a number of people whose houses survived, whether in the Palisades or Altadena, who haven't even be able to move back into their own neighborhoods yet, and may not be able to do so for a few more months. So until that happens, we can't even really see the rebuilding of the communities effectively, even beyond the reconstruction.
All right, and of course, getting ready for all the other big events coming up here, including the Olympics ultimately in 2028. And given this recovery, is LA going to be able to handle all this?
Well, the good news for us is that most of the things that we were doing for the Olympics were a relatively light lift compared to the overall resources of LA. We had been able to bid for the Olympics and get them because it wasn't going to cost the city, the state, and others nearly as much money as we'd seen historically go into Olympics over the last 20, 30 years. But what you're also, though, seeing is, will there be other fires? Will there be other disruptions? And we need to be aware of that. We need to be aware of the fact that the world is going to be watching us. And I think that the leadership is there. I think the resources are there to handle the Olympics effectively. I think all of those look really, really good. But that issue of the impacts of climate change, of a warming climate, of the fact that we are cycling between a lot more rain and then no rain, is definitely something to keep track of, not just in terms of construction being ready for the Olympics, but also how the Olympics themselves play out once we have them.
Terrific. Economist Kevin Clouden, thank you very much for taking the call here on all these important matters. Kevin Clouden, Executive Director of Milken Institute Finance, based here in Southern California. Kevin Clouden, thank you very much for joining us live here this afternoon.
My pleasure, Frank, and best to everyone.
Thank you very, very much. And out to the freeways we go now with showers dancing around this afternoon. Let's get the latest on your ride here in 790 KBC. Mottek Money continues here, 790 KBC. Nervous time as the U.S. Senate takes up the president's so-called big, beautiful spending bill. Let's get an update now on where things stand and the importance of this bill, by the way, to small businesses nationwide. Joining us live now is Jeff BRABANT, Vice President of the National Federation for Independent Business. Jeff, thanks very much for taking the call here this afternoon.
Thanks for having me on, Frank.
All right, where do we stand here with this big, beautiful bill?
Right now, as I think most of your listeners know, it's moved through the House. It's into the Senate. The Senate is considering what they're going to do with it right now, whether or not they're going to make significant changes, small changes, or no changes. My bet would be on some small changes. If there's one thing My time working in Congress and working in the government relations field tells me that the Senate doesn't like getting rolled by the House. So they're probably going to make some changes to this. For the organization I work with, National Federation of Independent Business, we represent about 300,000 small business owners throughout the country. The things we really like is this is a very pro-small business bill. I know there's been a lot of talk in the media about a whole host of provisions, but one thing that's been kind of flying under the radar is that this bill, if this bill does not pass and if Congress allows some taxes to increase next year, we'll be looking at a tax increase on 33 million small business owners. And that's a pretty big deal because, and Frank, I know we've talked about this a little in the past, but if you go back in time to the last big tax bill in 2017, the big change was the C corporation rate was cut from 35 to 21%. And that's great for that, but it's only about 10%, less than 10% of small businesses are C corporations. The vast majority of them are what we call these pass-through businesses. And you might be asking, well, what's a pass-through business? And that's a business where if you're the business owner, you're a sole proprietor, you're a partnership, you're an S corporation, your profits pass through to your personal income taxes. So you don't pay the C corp rate, you pay the individual rates, which last time were the top rate right now is 37%, the federal rate, and the C corp rate's 21%, which is a big gap. So Congress came up with this 20% deduction, whose goal was to lower the effective tax rate of small businesses. Most of them are these pass-through businesses we discussed, and get it a lot closer to 21%. The catch, though, is that expires at the end of the year. And what Congress did in this bill titled the One Big Beautiful Bill Act was not only extend this, they were going to make this provision permanent and increase it from a 20% deduction to a 23% deduction. So if you're a small business owner, that's a massive win for you because not only does it keep you competitive with your larger C corporation rivals who are not scheduled to see a tax hike, frankly, it might give you a little step up. It might give you a little boost and make you a little more competitive. So from the small business perspective, I think it's a very good bill. I think it's one of the better bills in actually recent history for small businesses. But there's still the hurdle that is the Senate. This is a big, complicated bill with a lot of different provisions. And while a number of them are great for small business, obviously the Senate will see where they're going to take it from here.
On the air live with Jeff Brabant, the Vice President of the National Federation for Independent Business. Certainly a lot riding on this for small business people, and this will impact things for the foreseeable future, at least a decade, right? And obviously there's a lot of talk now about all this uncertainty and so forth. So when this thing passed, that'll certainly be a huge relief as far as the uncertainty part of the equation, right?
Yeah, uncertainty has been rising among small business owners in recent months, and one of the reasons we've heard it, it's a number of things, and one of it is they're not sure if they're going to see a tax increase next year, right? So if you're a small business owner and you're saying, all right, I'd really like to expand my operations next year, hire a few more people, maybe open a new location, but I don't know if I'm going to see a pretty big tax hike. Why don't I just take a step back and hold off on that money I'm going to spend and wait and see if my taxes actually are going to go up or not. It's the same idea, especially for big investments. If you're going to buy a big piece of equipment, make a big capital investment in your business, you're probably going to wait and see what Congress is doing. So this should certainly help, no pun intended, to deal with the uncertainty issue and give business owners the certainty they need to move forward and spend money and help fuel the local economies. And because we know small business owners are such big pieces of every local economy, supporting the local little leagues, supporting almost half the workforce.
All right, and what about what Elon Musk had to say? By the way, he's taken aim at this bill today, calling it an abomination. I believe is what he said on X. Concerned about the spending part of all of this. So, what is your reaction to that? And tell us about how you expect the opposition to be overcome to this bill coming up here in the Senate.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's how you define spending. Right? If your taxes have been one way for 8 years and extending them at the same rate for the next 10 years or permanently, I don't view that as spending. Some people, congressional budget officers might view that as spending. I think most small business owners view that as preventing a massive tax like that will make it so they will be less competitive with their larger rivals. That is not something that most small business owners would consider government spending or government pork or however you want to call it, that is just good economic sense.
Yep, certainly would be an abomination if there was such a tax increase if this thing didn't pass as you described here. So thanks for standing tall for small. Jeff Brabant, Vice President of the National Federation for Independent Business, the voice of small business here in the United States. Thank you very much, Jeff, for joining us live here this afternoon.
Thanks for having me again.
Thank you very much, and stay tuned now for the 790 KBC News Blitz with Randy Wang, and I'll be back with more at 4 tomorrow afternoon right here on Mottek on Money on 790 KBC.
The United States Soccer Federation presents the U.S. Soccer Podcast.
Inside the opening 45 seconds. What a goal!
Jack McGlynn with that cannon of a left foot.
Never miss a game.
What a start for the United States.
Shot from distance. What a goal!
Never miss a moment.
Exquisite from the San Diegan.
Can he finish? Yes, he can! Yeah!
The U.S. Soccer Podcast. Follow and listen on your favorite platform.